Us are yearning for some positive news about developments in Israel and the Middle East. So it's a special pleasure tonight to welcome our speakers from Meet, Middle East Entrepreneurs of Tomorrow, a groundbreaking program run in partnership with MIT that brings together, educates, and empowers promising young Palestinian and Israeli leaders to create positive social and political change through the common language of technology and entrepreneurship. Itai Friedman is a peace-building activist with more than 10 years of experience in the nonprofit sector. From 2014 through 16, he worked on the global Burning Man organization. In this role, Itai helped guide the strategic growth of the Mid-Burn community, which is the Israeli offshoot of Burning Man, which now draws thousands of people every year, creating an open and inclusive public space for Israeli civil society to experiment. Itai now serves as Meet's director in the United States and in Latin America. Our second speaker, Wissam Jarjoui, was born and raised in Jerusalem. After graduating from Meet's first class in 2006, Wissam went on to study at MIT, where he earned his BS and Master of Engineering in Computer Science in 2011. He's since worked for multiple startups here in the Bay Area. Wissam describes himself as passionate about conflict resolution through shared experience. Their presentation tonight is entitled Israeli and Palestinian Youth at the Center of Peace Building. Please welcome Itai Friedman and Wissam Jarjoui.
And the device?
Oh, yes. Just put that around your neck.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having us. If you will just amuse me for one moment, and we'll start by having you close your eyes for just 1 minute. And I want to bring up two narratives that have taken over what we think of the Middle East today, and especially the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. The first narrative is that the problem is too big. The second one is that there's nothing that I can do about it. Now I want you to think of my favorite bumper sticker all time. You are traffic. Now open your eyes. So here we are today, 51 years into the Israeli occupation of the Palestinian territories and the West Bank. If you think about what that actually means, it means the majority of the people alive today in that region were born into this reality. They don't know anything else. Furthermore, this November marks 23 years since Rabin's assassination, which marked the end of the Oslo Accords. If you think about what that means, it means that every teenager to go through his or her formative years since 1995 doesn't know what it's like to experience a legitimate hope for peace. To put that into perspective, I'm 36 years old, and I'm the last generation to know what it's like to think that peace might be around the corner. When I was in elementary school, we learned Arabic. By the time I entered high school, those lessons were replaced with French and Bible. Since Rabin's assassination, the Israeli public has been raised to accept the current status quo as the only reality that is possible. We got used to periods of violence and war every 3 years, and political tension paired with violence. Even me, Itai, an Israeli from Haifa, a city with a 22% Arab population, I became apathic to the conflict and didn't pay any attention to it in my day-to-day life. The Palestinians, they want statehood. They know what they want. On the Israeli side, we don't have a political vision. We were raised to accept the current status quo. That is our failure of our leadership. It's also a failure of previous peace-building programs. we know that even if we did have some kind of vision to think our way out of the conflict and towards some kind of sustainable solution, it would seem unrealistic because there's no infrastructure on the ground to turn that vision into reality. And that's where the MEET program comes in. Every year, 230 of the brightest Israeli and Palestinian students come together to learn how to build binational initiatives. We have 2 tracks at MEET, and they run parallel to each other over 3 years. On the one track, the students learn coding, entrepreneurship, public speaking, leadership skills, basically how to build a binational initiative together. Parallel to that, at the same time, over 3 years, they get very gradually exposed to each other's narratives. And at the end of the program, they realize that they have conflicting narratives. They don't agree on what to do with Jerusalem. They don't agree on the meaning of 1948 or 67. But regardless of that, they can still accomplish something that they're proud of. They can still build binational initiatives together. And through that, they realize that even though they don't agree on everything, they can still move forward and create incremental change. They start to care about each other, they start to care about the conflict, and they feel empowered to do something about it, each one in his own sphere of influence. Now, playing on people's fears is the same everywhere. It's the same in the United States, and it's the same in the Middle East. For us, we're very good at thinking that our sphere of influence is limited. But the truth is that unless those of us who really want to work forward towards a more inclusive society that serves us and our children better, unless we are willing to step out of our silos and start showing up for one another, we will never be able to drive society forward. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Now that, I hope, is not just a bumper sticker, but that is actually a manual that we teach our kids at MEET, how to show up for each other and create something good together. That's why me and Wissam, an Israeli and Palestinian, are in front of you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Itai. I believe, a little bit more in recycling energy, so I have all my notes digitally recorded. My name is Wissam Zarjoui. I'm an alumni of the first class of MEET, 2004. Been part of the organization for 15 years. I'm very happy to have been there at the very beginning of MEET, to have been part of the start. And I'm very happy that MEET is still going and did not end with my generation. When Itai mentions the 1990s, that's when I was born. By the time I was 10 years old, in 2000, we had already had the first Intifada. Peace was not realistic peace, as when I hear Itai talk about it, I can tell that there is something that happened before I was born that I wasn't a part of. You know, as I will get to talk to you about MEET gives me some idea of what that might look like and how that might be something we can achieve. I want to start by thanking you for welcoming me, a Palestinian, at this wonderful service. This is actually my first time. I hope to tell you about how MEET transformed my life. And I hope that by the end, I'm able to welcome each and every one of you into the MEET family. When I first heard about MEET, I was 14. I was oblivious to politics. This was by design. It's difficult to identify with the politics where I grew up without somewhat inciting violence or taking part in something that ended up being radicalized. So for me, the topmost priority, as my parents asked me, were always education and focus on your work. Now I want to ask everybody here, how many people, by a show of hands, how many people believe that peace and coexistence between the Palestinians and Israelis is the way to go? Perfect, we're all on the same page. Now, how many people here have a hard time finding a good way to contribute to that reality? Great, and don't worry about it, because when I was 14, and sometimes still today, I'm still there. That's part of the reason why I was apolitical, and part of the reason why it was by design. For me, Palestinian, it wasn't easy being a progressive. It wasn't easy being able to look at the positives that are left and try to turn them and build on them into bigger positives. And that all changed as Meet came along. Now, as a student of Meet, my sole focus as somebody who was trying to excel was purely being good at my courses. We don't particularly have grades, but we have projects, and those projects are, part of them were software, part of them were entrepreneurial, and combined in nature. And that was my sole focus. As I graduated Meet, that changed. Because as I was going through it, I started realizing the reality that I hear in Itai's voice when he talks about his teenage years. I started realizing that the coexistence that I believe in, that is hard for me to take a stance for, is actually possible. And more than that, Meet has actually introduced me to my partners in the future who can help me make that a reality. The beauty about it is that I did not have to take a stance to realize this reality. I only had to pursue what's in my best interest at the time, which is better education, better access to resources. When Meet was pitched to me in my high school, the only things that I heard were computer science, entrepreneurship, being sponsored by MIT. Now, MIT is not as well known in the Palestinian population, so when the presenter mentioned MIT was one of the top 10 schools, I thought she was just exaggerating. So I thought she just wanted to generate some interest. But I went home and I looked it up and I realized I should take this seriously. It's funny, she's one of my best friends now, and she's been part of the journey since the beginning. She now serves on the board of Meet. By pursuing that natural instinct of, okay, I want to focus on education, let me pursue the highest education I can get, I joined Meet, and that's when I realized a dream that wasn't possible otherwise. And that's the impact that Meet has had on me. Now, many times when I talk about the impact, it's easy to notice the impact it's had on my career. When I was in Meet, I had an Israeli mentor. Israeli mentor is very savvy, very good at what he does, and he helped me with advice from him, and having Meet being affiliated with MIT, I was able to be successful in my career. At the same time, part of how Meet selects students, we select excellent students. I was already doing well in class. So it's up for debates, right? I know Meet's helped me a lot, but perhaps I would have found another way. What I can tell you without hesitation about something that Meet offered to me that nothing else could have offered was that partner, that Israeli partner on the other side. As a Palestinian, there was no way where I could have found that partner if it wasn't for Meet. I believed in what Meet was about, but before it existed, it was too difficult to take that kind of stance. And the founders of Meet at the very early years, that's the opportunity that they gave me. In today's world, that's the opportunity that I want to give the next generation, which is, if you believe in finding a common ground and working together to make the situation better, you can come work with us. That's the peace and coexistence that Itai's generation was the last to believe in. And thanks to Meet, my generation and all the generations since, at least part of them, can believe in that as well. Now, yes, Meet only accepts the students, but this impact carries on to families. And this is evident by the fact that a lot of our students, their siblings, their cousins, hear about Meet and apply and want to partake. And even if they're not students, they actually end up being part of our staff. As an alumni of Meet today, I'm a mentor for a couple of bright Israeli entrepreneurs. I take my role very seriously, not just as a mentor, but as a Palestinian mentor to Israeli entrepreneurs. Because I understand that the empathy that I developed for my Israeli mentor, they will one day also develop for myself. I mean, I think they have it already, to be honest with you. But those relationships, those individual relationships, are what I believe will help us close the gap between the populations, help each side build empathy for one another. As Itai pointed out, the world is filled with negative news. Every day you turn on the news, there's more about it. What's forgotten is all the positive impact that's driven by those who believe in progress. Programs like Meet. It's not every day that you hear about Palestinians and Israelis coming together, putting their differences aside, and deciding to find ways in which they can work on making the situation better for each other. This is what Meet is doing. As an alumni, even still, it impacts me to this day. I'm not sure if everybody is familiar. For many reasons, as an East Jerusalemite, my residency situations is challenging. Some of the first people that I call on for help are my Israeli partners that I met through Meet. And talking to them about it helps them understand where I'm coming from and also helps me understand where they're coming from. And I don't see this would have been possible without Meet. So as it is hard to focus on the positive, it is happening. We are growing. We're looking for more and more partners and supporters who believe in our vision and mission to educate and empower tomorrow's young leaders of Palestinians and Israelis to help make a positive impact in the Middle East. And with that, I'd like to invite you to join the Meet family and be engaged, be critical, and drive the impact and make the future that you want to make. And with that, I also want to end. I don't think we have time for questions, right? I also want to end. So thank you very much again for your time.
Hi. I think we have just a few minutes. I would love to ask you just a couple of questions, maybe to clarify a few things. So people start the program when they're how old?
People start the program at the age of 15 and they finish at the age of 17.
And boys and girls?
Boys and girls equally represented across both societies. And actually, one of my favorite things about the program is when you get girls and boys together in the room for an excellence program. At the age of 15, the girls run the show. And if you came to visit us in Jerusalem, that's what you'll see.
And is it difficult to recruit participants among Israeli and Palestinian families, or are families eager to have their kids participate?
So the way the program works is we go to about 50 schools throughout Israel and the West Bank, and we say, we have a program for you. It's coding, it's entrepreneurship, it's MIT, and hands go up. This is what opportunity sounds like for bright young kids today. The fact that it's a binational program is an afterthought, and because of that, we actually get kids from the full political spectrum. And that's what makes that narrative work that we do with them so important.
When you say binational initiatives that you're hoping as an outgrowth of this program, what kinds of things are you thinking of?
So there's really two main areas of impact that we look at. First and foremost, it's just by the fact that they're coming together and creating any kind of business or entrepreneurial activity, that's an economic infrastructure on the ground that makes political change possible. In addition, we also challenge the students, and we ask them to think critically about the stereotypes that exist in the region, and to come up with projects that actually cause Israelis and Palestinians to either come closer together so where the stereotypes bother them, or to actually challenge the stereotypes directly through the startup.
So, Wissam, you said you were graduated in the first class, which is 2006, so you've been graduating people for 12 years now. How many graduates are there, and what can you tell us about the impact so far of the program?
So we currently have 435 graduates. We're looking at about 75% retention as far as their continued involvement in the program. One of the most encouraging things that we see is actually that 70% of our current staff are alums of the program who have come back to give. Additionally, every year, in addition to the MIT instructors and the students, we have 25 TAs who act as liaisons between the instructors and the students, and these liaisons are all alums who have come back to volunteer their summer breaks in order to run the program. The one success story that I'll share real quick, one of Wissam's classmates, her name is Helen Wexler. She got a job working for the Jerusalem Development Authority, managing a fund of $200 million to turn Jerusalem into a high-tech city. She used her influence in this position in order to invest in binational projects. She did it not because it's only in her values, but because that's the network that she grew up with.
And social relationships continue amongst the graduates, friendships, can we say?
I can pull up my WhatsApp group.
There's a WhatsApp group?
There's a WhatsApp
That's
group.
great.
Yes.
Well, I encourage you, all of you, to come up and say hello after the service and ask your own questions. But once again, thank you so much for bringing the story of meat to Betham.
Thank you.
Thank you.